Hello everybody, welcome back to Gelvin Valley Farming Simulator 15. I'm just kind of looking at my notes here and I think, like I know I've mentioned before, I can't hardly believe it, but I think this is my 70th episode of this particular map. Still don't know where all it's going, but what I do know is I don't want to plant grass. I think I was going to put in canola in this field. 70 episodes. My goodness. If anybody has lasted through this whole thing, there must be something wrong with you. That's that's about all I can say. I know there's probably something wrong with me. That was evident at the get-go. I just recorded an episode talking about a fire mod. So I think I'm going to get off that kick here. I'm going to have to go find my tractor, and we're going to have to fill up with seeds again here in short order. Oh yeah, and I practically get PTSD in this field here. There we go, we're out. This is the dreaded field 38. But never fear, I have fixed all the fences, right? So if I walk up here, I can't get through it. I just went over it. Maybe this work I did wasn't as good as I think it was, but I think it was mainly on the bottom. That's where the header of the combine would sneak through. Yeah, see, that's walled up tight. That's what I want. Assuming I could have snuck under there the last time. Anyway, let's go get here. Ah, how convenient. Here we go. And I think I am just down the... Oops, I didn't mean to do that. I am just down the hill from here, right? Over on 38. So we're going to head out of here and zip on down there to get a handy little refill. Get our beacons going. I don't know that Farm Sim 15 had the ability... Well, yes I do. Maybe it did have it. I know in 17 this changed to where, you know, you could... When your planters got empty, you had to fill it with bags or something. You could literally see the seed flow. I think you had to have a special mod in order to do that here in 15. Otherwise, like this mod, this trailer, it's a modded trailer, so it's just a trigger. It has a never-ending supply. You still have to pay for it. You know, we'll see, it'll cost something to do it, but I don't have to go refill this trailer. The mod author, Wild Wild West, I think he put one area, the garden center, where you could buy seeds, and it is way on the other side of the map, so, you know, I think we'll just make do with our little tractor trailer here. That's probably close enough. Yep. I don't know if we'll have enough fuel to get to the end. Maybe what I'll do is take our other tractor back to the barnyard and get ready for hauling some fuel. Or maybe that can be done with a pickup. I don't recall. Oh, and you know what? I maybe shouldn't have filled that planter so full. You know, there I wasn't paying attention. I forget. This is one area where you got to be careful, I think, with the rent mod. You know, I kind of forget I'm only renting that planter, so every extra seed that I put in there that I don't use is just money down the drain. But, you know, I got all of 38, all of 37, and then field number 8 to do, so maybe I'll use most of it. I guess we'll find out. We'll find out. Sneak on down the hill here and see if I can avoid these treacherous ditches on either side. I don't know that the Wild Wild West intended it to be. It seems his map, more so than any other that I've played on, these ditches, you just don't see that. He probably didn't intend it as a metaphor on life, but I don't know, the older I get, that's the more how it seems. We all know people who fall into a ditch on the right side of an issue, and another person who falls into the ditch on the left side of an issue, and neither one of them like people who try to stick to the middle. Makes practical sense, in terms of driving down a road, but I don't know. Life seems so extreme anymore with opinions and everything. Seems like more effort ought to be made to find the middle and have some peace and harmony. And that's everybody's philosophical lesson for today. I'm still learning that lesson myself. Who am I to talk to anybody else? I gotta get that little dab. My OCD won't let me. Oh, and I just gotta make some money so I can buy a chainsaw and cut this tree down. Hopefully there won't be any protest in the fine community of Gelvin Valley if I take out a tree or two to make it a little bit easier to farm through this stretch. Oh, looks like I missed some areas in here. So I'm going to try to sneak down in here. Get them. Because of my poor driving. Well, one thing I was going to comment on this episode has nothing to do with modding. It's the weather here. And I know a couple weeks ago, maybe even 3 weeks ago now, in the UK, they had a tremendous heat wave going on to where historic temperatures were reached. And I wouldn't say we just went through a hot week ourselves, and maybe a week and a half, I don't know. And there's going to be some more warm days coming. The summer isn't over by any stretch of the imagination. It's 1st, 2nd of August here as I record this. But we came through a week with some unseasonably hot weather for us, and why it matters to me so much is, let's see if can I pull this hill? Come on. I think I can. There we go. Good lad. We don't have any air conditioning in our home. Grew up without it, and you hardly need it. It's a moderate enough climate here that even in the summer, usually what tends to happen, even if you have a warm day, you'll get an evening breeze, and overnight the temperatures will cool back down. And that's pretty typical no matter how hot it gets. Usually by morning it's a pretty moderate temperature once more. The trouble is when it gets really hot, it tends to be a bit more wind still, and it's hotter into the evening, when we might open the windows of our house and try to get some airflow, and it'll tend to be hotter then, so we don't want to open the windows, and the airflow is stagnant, so the house just kind of steadily heats up at times like those. And by the time you get to the end of a heat wave, you're almost as hot inside the house as you are outside. And so the past week, I think in our area we saw 102 degrees Fahrenheit. I think for those of you used to Celsius, that'd be 39 degrees Celsius, I think. So, like I say, not the hottest place in the world, but unseasonably hot for us. I used to follow a bit of weather data. Weather has kind of always been interesting to me. The extremes. I love it when a record is broken. That's kind of an exciting thing to happen when they have, hundreds of years of data or however much they have. It's kind of cool to see a record broken. I know one unique one that we had in our area. You know, I say hundreds, that's probably wrong. I do know it's over 100. But in our area where I live, for a long time, we're talking over 100 years, I think what the conventional wisdom was, if you wanted to have a picnic, if there ever was any time of the year when you wanted to have a picnic, and of course didn't want to have any rain, that's what nobody wants, you know, when you got a picnic is rain. If you wanted to do that, they said to schedule it for July 11th. And if you looked at the past data, there was, you know, it seems like every day of the year there would be average rainfall. You know, and averages, of course, are, you know, determined by long periods of time. And if it rains once, it's going to take that measurement and it's going to smear it over all of the days in the data set. So it may in history have only rained once on a particular date, but because it rained just one time, statistically speaking, there is some average rainfall for that particular date. Well, not so for July 11th. And I remember studying those records. When you looked at July 11th, it was a flat zero because it had never in the history of recording the weather data for where I live had it ever rained for over 100 years on July 11th. Well, up until a couple years ago, that is, and you know, it's kind of cool to break a record, but I have to say I was kind of sad to see that one fall. And I knew it was coming. There was kind of rain predicted, and sure enough, July 11th came. We almost made it through the day with no rain, but then some sprinkles started happening, and in my mind I'm saying, oh, it's just sprinkles, you know, that's not enough to call it rain. Well, it just kind of continued, and we don't get a lot of rain in the summer here. And I don't remember how much it put down that particular July 11th, but there was no way out of it. It had definitely broken the record that was long-standing. I mean, it literally made the news the following day. You know, they said a record over 100 years old was toppled, and it was rainfall on picnic day. But yeah, last week was hot. To be in a home that has no air conditioning, and I don't mean to complain. I even recorded a couple videos during that time, and just sitting here, like as I started this video, I don't know if you heard a little extra noise. I forgot there's a fan under my desk. I just turned it off. It probably made a little bit of extra racket initially. I had that thing going full bore, but I had to turn it off while I was recording, and I just, yeah, I would be dripping with sweat. There was just no relief. The hottest it got inside her house last week, you know, there was a day where my wife and I, we did some baking and some stuff in the kitchen, and you know, the oven, 350 degrees Fahrenheit, so it's just blasting heat anytime you open that thing into the house. And so you got 100-degree heat outside, and you got all that warming your house for you. It's great in the winter, you know, but obviously in the summer that kind of stinks to have that in there, but it is what it is. But as a result of that, I think I saw 90 degrees on the inside of the house in the thermometer, and I think, again, for those of you used to Celsius, I think that's about 32 degrees Celsius. That's pretty hot for the inside of the house. I personally like to have it 70 if I can. You know, I don't have a conversion for that one. I'm sorry. But let's just say it's quite a bit cooler than 90 degrees in the house. And usually we can get there. It's surprising how cool you can keep a house even without air conditioning in it if you're willing to put in a little bit of work. You know, we watch diligently for when the temperature flip-flops, meaning it's cooler outside than it is inside. And when that happens, we immediately open every window we can, and we set up some fans to promote some airflow, get it moving, and try to bring the heat of the house down. And we'll go to bed a lot of times with lots of windows still open. We tend not to keep our doors open. We'll lock those, but keep the fans going all night long, and usually by morning we will have it cooled to 70 degrees or even below, just to keep it comfortable. And it's amazing sometimes how cool you can keep it even without all of that. But when you have day after day of heat stacked up, there's no way around it. You can cool it a little at night, but it's still pretty tough going to bed and you're sweating there and trying to go to sleep. And I don't know how everybody else is. I need it cool going to sleep. And basically what the wife and I are doing is we're waiting for our furnace to blow up. It's 20 years old, so surely one of these days it'll go kaput and we'll need to get something new. And then I think at that time we'll try to maybe get some air conditioning in the house. But like I say, you hardly need it. And when you hardly need something, it's like, do I really want to spend, potentially thousands of dollars just to have a little extra comfort for a few days out of the year? Just one of those things that doesn't always make financial sense. But I gotta say, I mean, I really appreciate air conditioning when we have it. We got it at work, so it's nice to have, for sure. And in game here, now that I think of it, it just comes to mind. Let me get in here. Oh yeah, there it is, a weather forecast. See the temperatures that they put on there? The lowest it appears is 3 degrees. The highest is 28. It's kind of ironic that the highest temperature and the lowest temperature land on the same day. Well, 28. What does that get up? Well, that's basically like 83 degrees Fahrenheit, I think, in my terms. 3 degrees, that's just above freezing. And, in another map that I've been working on for Farm Sim 15 and tweaks and updates to it and what have you, I can't remember if I mentioned it in here or not, but I added a script to it for snowfall. Probably everybody listening to this has played Farm Sim 17, 19, and 22 now, where we're kind of used to the idea of it being cold and having snowfall. Well, Farm Sim 15 just doesn't quite work the same. We don't have the Seasons mod, and the way fill types work, with fill type being like wheat or barley or canola or snow, that kind of thing, fertilizer, anything you would fill into something, it just doesn't work the same. It's embedded in the map as if it's another crop, if I can put it that way. So I know a lot of the map work, when it comes to putting straw on the ground, that's embedded right in the map, and just like any other crop. So whether it's straw, wheat, cotton, or whatever you have in there, that's how the game knows how to put this fill type, on the map. With Farm Sim 17 and later versions, they do it a little bit differently, where it's like has its own, how to describe this, it's a painted map using the color red, I think. And the red, depending on the type or shade of red, it dictates how deep the fill type is sitting on top of the map. And it's just a totally different system. So I know when the Seasons mod was being developed in 17, they used that system knowing that they could put snow on the ground everywhere and it wouldn't interfere with anything else. Interfere meaning, I'm sure folks have noticed before when they have a combine and it's spewing straw out the back, and because you're harvesting wheat or canola or a barley or something. Have you ever noticed that when you drop straw over the grass, for example, like you see the green grass edge around this field, if you have grass foliage on it and you drop straw on top of it, you lose your grass. In other words, the straw isn't allowed to sit over the top of the grass. It turns it into straw windrow. and there's no getting your grass back unless you reprint, or replant. Well, not so in Farm Sim 17. You can just dump the fill type on top of whatever's underneath it, grass, wheat, barley, whatever, and it'll just sit there, and you can remove the fill type and you still have your crop or whatever underneath. So it's a totally different system between the games. So, but I still wanted to have this script to show some snowfall. And I figured the way I would do it is, because I knew that it would interfere, is I would put the snow on all the highest hills or mountaintops around the map. I mean, we're not up there doing any farming anyway, so I figured, well, I can just plunk some white stuff, up on the mountain, and the player can see it kind of from a distance, and it'll pile up there, you know, um, over time or what have you, but we don't got to do anything with it. So I kind of made that script up, and in the process, I guess I say all this, anybody trying to follow along with this, yeah, they're in for a bumpy ride. I say all that because in the process, I started wondering, well, what are the temperatures in the game? I had seen it kind of in the map, where we just looked at a little bit ago. I knew that the game tracks some kind of temperature, but obviously at those temperatures, even the lowest that it got there was 3 degrees. That's generally not cold enough to snow even. But then I figured that was part of the other reason for putting it up on the mountaintops. I mean, everybody knows that it tends to be cooler up in the mountains, so you can often have snow up there where it would just come down as rain or hail wherever we are. So that was kind of the premise that I worked from. But in the process, I think I learned, and I think I saw this even in the Farm Sim 17 coding. I couldn't prove it entirely in 15, but I would run a script in game to tell me what the temperature was. Just like we saw on that one map, or that one menu that we just looked at a little bit ago. There's a high and a low temperature for every day. Doesn't really mean anything for gameplay, but I kind of wanted to see what the extremes were. The lowest, so I set up this script to print it day by day, and then I fast forwarded it through time and just had a whole bunch of days. I stacked up, I don't know, maybe 50 days, just fast forwarding to see what data would give me. I believe the highest temperature I ever saw in game was 28 degrees Celsius, and the lowest was 0. Now 0 is actually literally freezing, but it's interesting. I think when it rains, it never would go to 0, probably because the game makers knew, well, hey, if it's raining and we take it to 0, the player probably would expect some snow, so we can't do that. So I think whenever it rained, I think the temperature would decrease slightly. I think they would key it off of the high temperature of the day, and they would move it down, I don't know, 7, 8 degrees or something. It's just one of those byproducts of trying to make a mod. In this case, adding snow to the map, where, I learned a little about kind of the weather programming, if you will, that they had in the base game. So I'm not 100% sure if I'm right. That's just kind of all anecdotal, but I ran it tons of times, and I don't think I ever saw a temperature higher than 28 Celsius, nor a temperature lower than 0. And I assume if it went down to 0, I mean, that would have happened overnight. And like I say, it didn't mean anything to anybody anyhow when it came to playing the game. That, of course, all changed when Realismus made the Seasons mod starting in 17, where temperature did become a bigger deal, and if the temperature wasn't right, then it didn't snow, it would come down as rain. So, just one of those things that I tweaked in-game, but even the base game itself didn't reach the temperatures that we had here last week, nor what everybody had in the UK, I think in the week or two even before that. I don't know, I've just always been one. I appreciate the cooler temperatures. I realize you gotta have the heat to grow certain things, grow lots of things, but I sure appreciate the cool, because I figure a person can always put more clothes on. It's easier to put more on to get warm than it is to take clothes off, to get cool. There's limitations to how cool you're able to get. And who am I to complain? My goodness, it's really a lovely climate out here. I appreciate it. I've been around it my whole life. It's just a few times where maybe it's a little bit uncomfortable if you don't have air conditioning or what have you. But I've been some other places in this world, not really widely traveled, mainly within America. And I remember one time we were traveling in the Midwest. My wife and I both, we have family ties back there. I think we were in Iowa maybe for her family, or in Illinois kind of for some of mine. And during our trip, one of her uncles passed away, and he was down in Kansas. And so we were right at the tail end of our trip. We decided before we would go home, we would just go down into Kansas to go to his funeral visitation and visit the family there and what have you. So we did. And I have never felt so uncomfortable in my life. I'm just not used to that kind of combination of high temperature and high humidity. Out here, it's we'll occasionally have high humidity, and you will describe it as feeling muggy, if you will, where the temperature may not even be that hot, but it feels hotter than blazes, because of the humidity. Well, I don't know what the humidity was when we went there. It looked clear outside, like it was a sunny day, and I don't remember the temp. I just know it felt blistering hot. And we go to this funeral visitation, and kind of our tradition, in our church family and whatnot, practice is, we tend to dress up when we go to these to show respect. And so I was standing there in a suit and tie, and there's this long line in the Kansas summer heat and humidity combo. I was just dripping head to toe. And so I'm looking ahead to the mortuary building, where my wife's uncle was, and thinking, oh, good, we're close. Once we get inside, they'll have nice air conditioning, everything will be cool, I'll get some relief from this. Well, there was no such luck. We eventually did get into the building, but I almost think it was worse inside the building than it was out. We were told the air conditioning, I think, was broken, or it couldn't keep up, and it was just awful. It's a wonder I didn't have to throw the suit away when we were done. But we eventually reached, any funeral visitation line, reached where the body is, and I think I know I told my wife that I thought her uncle looked more comfortable than the whole lot of the rest of us, and trouble was he was dead. So, and maybe I've shared that before in here. I can't remember. I can't remember half the things I've said in here, even though I've taken a few notes over time, so I apologize if that's a repeat. All I know is it was hot last week. So we tried to give relief as well as we can. I know my brother has a pool. He lives on our street also. So I know my boys, one of them anyways, availed himself of that. And I tried to make up excuses maybe to stay and work a little bit longer if I could, where we had plenty of air conditioning. But even at work, it was hard to keep it up. I think they designed these buildings, whether it's our homes or office buildings, they probably design them based on averages. And I actually looked up the averages for our area not that long ago, when we were having this. It isn't uncommon for the temperature here to go above 100. It happens every now and again, but it doesn't stay there. And I looked at the averages for the month of July and August, which are the hottest months of the year for where we are. And I think it said our average high is 83 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, that's not that bad at all. I think that works out to be about 28 Celsius. But, I mean, it's like they say, the devil's in the details. that's an average. So you'll have just as many readings oftentimes above that measure as you have below it. So that's kind of how it works. But we made it through, and we're still complaining about it. What can I say? What can I say? Well, I guess what I can say is I see a whole half hour has blazed by already. So maybe what I need to do, because the time just seems to keep adding to these, is maybe just call the episode there. We got one last little triangle in this field and we'll have it done here. So we're getting close to done. We have just 37 and 8 left. Seems like just a moment ago and I was still doing the harvest. But here we are, almost ready to replant, and we'll need to drop some fertilizer and get all these fields ready for the harvest again. So thanks for coming along. Appreciate you coming along to listen to little old me. Take care till the next time, and I'll say goodbye for now.